What's up, guys, and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. Today I want to talk about and give you a hands-on demonstration of what makes the OP-1 unique in 2021. I was lucky enough to get mine before the price gouging and before Teenage Engineering permanently raised the price, so I'm not completely sure if I'd buy one now. However, it was definitely worth it when I got it, and I've come to love its very unique features, although I don't use it as often as I should, because this, with its tape machine, its wacky synthesizer and effects units, and its unique sequencers, is very much its own thing. And often when producing DAWs, I prefer to use something like the Novation Circuit or the Roland MC101, but this thing will still always have a very special place in my heart, especially because it's kind of a niche boutique item at this point. To start things off, let's talk about probably the biggest thing that makes this unique among anything else I've used in the groovebox world. I mean, first of all, this isn't really even a groovebox. It is neither a box nor is it really a performance instrument. It's pretty different. And the main reason for that is the tape machine and the tape machine workflow. So essentially, you've got 4 tracks of just audio, just ready to receive whatever you give it. So that can be drums, that can be synth stuff. These can either be played in live or sequenced, and it can even be stuff that you record in via the input on the side here. So, for instance, I've got these drums pulled up here. I'll get into the specifics of these drums in a little bit because there are a couple more things I want to show. But if I want to start recording, let's do this. And I should probably have a click going. So first of all, notice I just recorded like a little bit of tape here. Like this simulates an actual reel of tape that is just sitting here now. You can also think of it like a clip of audio in your DAW. And I can even do stuff like pick it up, drop it somewhere else. I can pan around through it. I can split it, pick that one up, all that kind of stuff, which is definitely a bit unique because normally with a lot of these groove boxes, you've got more of like a MIDI version of a DAW where you recorded MIDI notes and then those sequence a synthesizer or drum machine engine, and then you can manipulate that in real time. Whereas with this, you record something into tape like you're recording an audio clip, and then it's just there, and you can manipulate it from there a bit, but you are kind of locked into whatever you just recorded. And you can even record over it on the fly, and I'll show that in a second. But first of all, let me get a click going. Okay. Just that little loop. I can cut off the end here. And then what I want to do is lift this, set my loop out point, and now I can get rid of this. And I've got my little 4-bar loop. So now let's say I want to add in that little offbeat hi-hat. I'm going to turn this down a tad because I don't want it to stick out too much. And I can just record directly over to this, bearing in mind that there is no way to undo this, and there is no way to like change the level or timing of it after the fact because I'm recording directly over this tape track. I could just hedge my bets here and do it on a separate tape track, but in this case I want to demonstrate this functionality, so let's do it. See how that sounds? Good enough. And so in this case, you can see I've already hedged my bets a little bit by giving myself 4 opportunities to mess it up. And I could always like take this little stretch and like copy it over everything if I messed this up and wanted to basically revert it. It's a bit of a workaround. And that's kind of what you are trained to do with the way that the tape machine works. It's very old school in a very particular way. In this case, I've just committed to it. So then I could go to tape track 2 and start adding something else, or if I wanted to layer this further, I could just keep recording infinitely over the top of it, but that requires a bit of bravery that I do not have. Let's bring up a synth track. Actually, before I get into synths, I should quickly mention one other thing about the tape machine and how it makes you work. There are different people who use it to kind of inspire different song creation processes. For someone like Jeremy Blake, aka Red Means Recording, he likes to create a bunch of different sections of a song somewhat linearly. So he creates this like evolving song that goes through a bunch of different sections. And the kind of linear tape workflow of that definitely inspires that. I've taken cues from that, but in my case, I like to hedge my bets a little bit more in terms of giving myself stuff to work with in post. And so what I will do is fill up my 4 tracks with a 4 or 8 or even 16 bar loop. Then I'll go over a little bit, set a new loop point, Maybe copy over one of the elements and just keep layering, all the while bearing in mind that I'll probably combine everything and layer everything on top of itself in post, creating a mega 8-bar loop, for instance. And I'll take some cues from Jeremy's workflow and also create some B sections and a bunch of stuff that can add variation within a song. It depends on how much you want to commit to really filling up these tracks, and I like to leave my options open. Okay, that being said, let's make sure I've got track 2 selected here. Let's go to the synth. So you're probably already noticing this synth sounds a little weird, a little unusual, and it looks quite weird. The controls of all of the synth engines pretty much are not very similar to what you would normally see on a traditional hardware synth. And for some people, that's going to be a draw, and for some people, that's going to be a draw back. So that's a sample. This is the FM engine. Go up an octave. I can turn some effects. Ow. You can get into some pretty weird territory pretty quickly, although stuff with the cow does start to really make it obvious that you've used the cow. But that's just an example of the fact that this is a very visual workflow. You can definitely learn how the parameters work and how they affect the sound, but it's definitely meant to be more kind of felt out than deeply understood. So this is the FM engine. Let's move on to a different one. Oh boy. Let me get rid of the effects. This is going to be harsh. Ow. Let's not do that one. Let's go back to that first patch. This is another one of the engines. A little more kind of a normal subtractive synthesis engine. You can definitely hear a lot of the elements of a normal kind of subtractive synth engine or virtual analog engine. But it just works kind of differently. It's more visual. It's a little more unpredictable. Add an effect. Let's try a delay. A weirder effect, like grid. Just like a more metallic, kind of wacky delay. Kind of multiple parts to it. Something like Nitro, which is basically a filter with a fancy graphical interface. Very useful to have. So let me just record something. Let the ring out a little bit. Once again, kind of future-proofing it for if I want to take this into post. So that is committed to track 2. Let's activate track 3 and get another synth going. And of course I could overdub this if I wanted to, but in this case I'm not particularly feeling like it. Let me just switch out this patch entirely, pull up a new engine. Turn that off. This is actually like the drum synth. I don't want to do that one. Let's pull up Dr. Wave. Like I said, very visual. I could pull up Punch. Maybe try a different effect. Phone is just weird. I almost never use it. It's a bit much. Where'd cow go? Here's one more synth engine. This is the digital one. There are a bunch more that I'm skipping over, but I just want to give you like the flavor of how these things work. So I've got an LFO in here that I'm going to leave off. You can see how it's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on, but you can hear distinct changes in the sound, and then you can even activate an LFO, and you can send that, in this case I've got it with the envelope, you can send that to different sources. Oh, that's doing something. Sounds kind of nasty. I can take this a lot farther. I'm not going to for the moment, but all this to say, sound design on this thing is weird. It's visual. And some people are going to like that. Some people won't. And it does sound fairly digital, but fairly lo-fi at the same time. Some people are going to find that very appealing. Some people are going to find that very annoying. Also, I should note, you've got some more kind of traditional stuff. You can turn up your portamento, change your play mode to something like unison. That feels a little more like a normal synth to me. But let's move on to the drums, because there's some interesting things going on here that I want to touch on. First of all, this was the drum bit I was playing earlier. This is recorded from my DAW. I just brought a bunch of samples in. In this case, this is from my $5 sample pack and Tetro's latest sample pack. I'll leave links to both in the description. And then I just put them out linearly, recorded that directly into here, and then the OP-1 sliced it automatically. And I had to adjust the slices a bit, and this is another really nice feature of how the OP-1 is laid out. This is not necessarily unique to the OP-1, but it is nice, and I want to mention it. So you've got these two knobs here, and these set your in and out points for different chops. So I can dial this in. In this case, I've got each sample set to just ring out. I'm not actually sure if there's a way to have samples cut each other off. This one just ends when I lift my hand from the key. You can take this sample chopping approach a whole lot farther, because if you go into, say, this one, this is a snippet of a song that I sampled into here, and then once again, I set up some chops. So you can do something like this. Hopefully you get the idea. That's incredibly inspiring. Once again, there are other DAW-less devices out there that can do sample flipping like this, but the OP-1 is one of the best that I've tried in terms of just immediacy. You just record something directly in from your phone or your laptop or wherever else, or even from the radio. There's this little jack that you can connect to sample directly from the radio, which is pretty neat. That's also fairly unique in terms of hardware, although the Polyend Tracker can also do that, and there are plugins designed for that as well. But regardless, you just record it directly in, and then you've got the super visual interface to very quickly develop a sample chop or cut out individual one-shots and just go, which is super nice. And there's also a built-in mic on here, and it's not great, but it is there. So basically, this all takes the insane immediacy and speed of a pocket operator like the KO and puts it into something with a much more visual interface, and it's quite powerful. Once again, that is not the most unique thing, and you can get this experience with a few other devices, but it is worth mentioning, and it's something that just goes into the overall user experience of this device. So far, I've covered the tape machine, some of the synth engines, and kind of the overall approach to synthesis, and the drum and sampler engine. The last thing that I want to talk about is the sequencers, and there are a bunch contained within this, and I'm going to just touch on a few. This is for when you don't want to play something in live, and instead you want to record it in like perfectly aligned to the grid, and these can actually help unlock creativity in the process. So let me show you how that works. This is on the drums. Let's stick with this drum track for now. I can hit this to go to the sequencer, and in this case, I've got basically a little MIDI sequencer, so I can hit Shift, set that. Let's just do a 4 on the floor kick just to get the idea across. Let's put that in there. Boom. Boom. This is starting to look very DAW-like. I can hold this. Put this dude in there. Some nice Foley. Then what I can do is go to the tape machine. So I've got this on a different track, and I'm just going to start a new loop point. 1, 2, 3. Set that. What I can do now, just hold down a key and it just goes. And what's super nice is Teenage Engineering thought ahead here, and they let you hold down record, and it won't record anything until either you hit play or you hit a key. So notice how this is pitched down because I've chosen a different key other than this C here. And now we've got our loop. There are a bunch of sequencers like this. I just want to show you one in the realm of the synths. One of my favorites is the endless sequencer. So essentially, you hit Shift. And that just goes. So let's do the same thing with the tape machine. Let me start a new track. And you can even do stuff like move around on different keys. There are a ton of other unique creative sequencers within this thing, and other people have covered them, so I'm not going to rehash that here. People have done it much better and more in-depth than I could in this video. But the other thing I want to touch on is one thing that doesn't make the OP-1 unique, and that is the fact that it is a small, standalone electronic music creation device. There are a ton of them out there, and that didn't necessarily used to be the case. But at this point, we've got a proliferation of stuff that is small, highly portable, and self-contained for creating electronic music. Stuff like the Innovation Circuit, the Roland MC101. There's much cheaper stuff for dealing with samples in the way that this does. I alluded to the Pocket Operator PO33KO earlier. And there's stuff that even lets you do sound design completely from scratch, like the Korg Electribe 2, the synth version, or the Synthstrom Deluge. And once again, these devices are portable and self-contained, and so that is not a unique feature to the OP-1. I should also mention stuff like the MPC-1 for really going in depth with dealing with samples. So my point with that is, if you've gone down the YouTube rabbit hole of people making music on portable self-contained devices like the OP-1, there is other stuff out there. The OP-1 is not the only option. However, if you need something that is like a studio in a very small device, this might be for you. There's other stuff out there that does have like direct recording in, like the Machine Plus and other devices that are less expensive that can also do this, but this is one of the smallest. And the tape machine workflow kind of frees you from just working within loops. So if you find the tape machine workflow, both for using this self-contained and with other gear, appealing, then this might be for you. If you want weird, creative synth interfaces that are very graphical in nature and still hands-on, this might be for you. And if you want a wealth of weird effects and sequencers, this might be for you. And also, being able to export individual tracks on this thing, while not unique, allows you to tap into the unique quirky sound of this thing, but still get some polish out of it in a DAW later. While there are other devices out there that replicate different functions of this thing, this has all of these combined into one in a very kind of odd, unique, quirky little device. And if that seems appealing to you and all of its limitations and weirdness are features instead of bugs in your eyes, this might be worth it to you. It's definitely not for everyone, but it is really cool, and that will do it for today's video. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see a video about some less expensive devices that might be a good bet for you, you can click or tap up over here. And if you'd like to see me make music with the OP-1, you can click or tap down over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit.